Okay, it's just about 6:30, and Megan, I will turn the meeting over to you.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So thank you for joining us tonight. This is the second of 6 public outreach meetings that will be held as part of the Binghamton Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative. Tonight's meeting is for local neighborhood groups, and the purpose is to solicit input from members of the city's various neighborhood organizations regarding improvements or reforms to the Binghamton Police Department. My name is Megan Brockett. For those of you I don't know, I work in Mayor Rich David's office as assistant for neighborhood and youth affairs, and I'll be serving as the moderator for tonight's meeting. As a member of this collaborative steering committee, my role tonight is limited to ensuring that everyone who is registered for this meeting has an opportunity to speak. Tonight is about hearing from our neighborhood groups on ways that the police department can better serve the city's diverse community, improve public safety, implement 21st century policing strategies, strengthen relationships and trust, and address the disparities that affect communities of color. Your input is necessary to reach these goals as outlined in Governor Cuomo's executive order. Just for some context for those of you who may not be familiar, the city has selected the Finn Institute for Public Safety to serve as an independent research partner in this effort. The Finn Institute is charged with collecting and tracking public input and themes during these outreach meetings and surveying stakeholders for additional input. They will be reviewing a video copy of tonight's meeting. As you can see on your screens, we're joined tonight by other members of the Collaborative Steering Committee, including Mayor Rich David, Binghamton Police Chief Joe Zukoski. I believe District Attorney Michael Korchak is here with us, Public Defender Mike Baker, and many other members of the steering committee. So thank you all for joining us. For members of the public watching tonight, I want to thank you for your interest and remind you about the upcoming opportunities for public input. As I said, tonight's meeting with local neighborhood groups is one of 6 outreach meetings. That includes an open public comment meeting on February 18th at 6:30 p.m. You can find the full meeting schedule on the Collaboratives page of the city website. For anyone who wishes to provide comment during any one of these upcoming meetings, please email the Collaborative to register at bpdcollaborative@cityofbinghamton.com. Community members can also submit written comments to that same email address. And again, that's bpdcollaborative@cityofbinghamton.com. For tonight, we will hear directly from members of local neighborhood groups. About a dozen of you have signed up to participate in this meeting. And on behalf of the steering committee, I want to thank you for taking the time to make your voice heard on this topic. I know many, but not all of you through my work in the mayor's office. I've attended your neighborhood meetings, and I've seen firsthand how much you care about our community and the issues that affect those of us who live here. Many of you take time every month or even more frequently to meet with your neighbors and work together to make your area of the city better. Your participation tonight is so important to this effort, and we truly appreciate you being here. So in order to make sure everyone has a chance to speak tonight, I'll make my way through our list of participants, turning over the floor to each of you one by one for up to 5 minutes. When your name is called, please unmute yourself, tell us your name, which neighborhood group you're with, and whatever you would like to share as part of the record for this meeting. We want to hear your experiences, thoughts, concerns, and ideas for improving policing in our community. This is a listening session, not a Q&A or a panel discussion. After the meeting, the steering committee may wish to follow up with you for additional input or questions. And again, all of this information is part of the community input record that will be included in the Finn Institute's compilation of public comment. So I will be moving down the list of order based on when participants registered to speak. And first up on our list is Richard Genesio from the Southside Neighborhood Assembly. Richard, are you here with us tonight?
It does not appear that Richard is signed on as of right now.
Okay, we will give him a little bit and then circle back. Okay, so next on the list is Tina Chronopoulos. Tina, are you here? Okay,
Yeah, hi, I am. I'm just trying to get organized. Give me 1 second.
Okay, not a problem.
All right, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, I'll start the timer, Tina, and the floor is yours.
Okay, super. Hi, good evening. My name is Tina Chronopoulos, and I'm here representing Fair Deal Binghamton, a neighborhood group of folks who live mostly on the west side. I personally have lived and worked in Binghamton for 10.5 years. Last summer, some of us decided to research how the Binghamton Police operates and what it does. I'm here to share with you what we as ordinary people have been able to find out. According to historical budgets, the number of people employed by the BPD has remained more or less steady since 1970, when there were 145 people working for the department. The budget for 2021 lists 142 positions. Since 1970, the population of the city has decreased. We have gone from 64,000 residents to an estimated 45,000 residents in 2019. That is a 30% drop, meaning that the number of police officers per resident has gone up when it is not clear at all that crime has gone up proportionally, and thus requiring the same number of officers now as in 1970. We think it is very problematic that police are increasingly dealing with people in distress or suffering mental health crises. Rather than increasing the numbers of police officers investing in more weapons, we need to invest in mental health and addiction specialists. One of our members was able to obtain records of use of force applications. We analyzed these records from 2015 to 2019. I will only talk about applications of force on those under the age of 18. This is what we found. Use of force is disproportionately applied to Black children. In 2015, 75% or 9 children on whom force was used were Black. In 2016, 55% or 21 children were Black. In 2017, 78% or 21 children were Black. In 2018, 68% or 15 children were Black. Finally, in 2019, 82% or 47 children were Black. The youngest child to have been physically restrained by 3 officers was a 7-year-old Black boy in 2018. An 8-year-old Black boy was restrained by 2 officers in 2019. 3 9-year-old Black boys were restrained by 2 or 3 officers each in 2016, 2017, and 2019. This is not okay. No one should ever be laying hands on a child, least of all police officers. The experience is deeply traumatizing, and we are asking for this committee to develop robust policies and a system to ensure that BPD officers do not lay hands on children, nor that they point guns or tasers at them. We also ask that, as a matter of course, any use of force on a child or someone under the age of 18 be investigated by a citizens review board. There is no information currently available on the BPD website that would make it possible for someone to figure out how to file a complaint, which should be remedied immediately. There should be information on how to submit a claim and to whom and how it will be handled. We propose that the committee recommend the establishment of a citizens review board that includes members from the community, and that a process be developed which would allow residents to put themselves up for election and for residents to choose who represents them on this committee. At the moment, there is no oversight and transparency as regards civilian or other complaints against the BPD. Only those that are upheld are able to be viewed by the public. And since the BPD tends to rule in its favor, most of the complaints are dismissed and the community will never know about these incidents. We ask that the BPD get rid of its armored vehicle and instead call in the National Guard when its use would be warranted. In addition, there is no reason that police need to dress up in military-like equipment and essentially play soldier when ordinary people are protesting the failures of this country. BPD has been collecting data on vehicle and traffic stops for several years now. We would like to know if this data is being analyzed by anyone, whether in BPD or elsewhere, and what you are learning from it as regards the race or ethnicity of those who are being stopped, and what measures are going to be put in place to work against potential racial profiling. Of the roughly 140 officers currently employed by the BPD, about 58 do not live in the city of Binghamton. This means that 41% of BPD employees are not living in our community. Police officers can apply to the Civil Service Commission at the city for a waiver, but our question is, why have the rule in place when more than a third of BPD employees are given a waiver, and on what grounds? Having a residency requirement means that officers become more attuned to the residents and their needs, which can only improve community relations. Police violence is aided by dehumanizing the victims of their violence. We propose that it would be more difficult for police to dehumanize those who are their neighbors. A final note. This past Tuesday, the mayor characterized the groups that have worked together with the community to come up with a plan for police reform as anti-police hate groups. As someone who has worked with some of these groups, I personally am dismayed at this divisive and unproductive language. It comes across as a rhetorical tactic aimed at silencing and dismissing ordinary people like me who are working towards a world in which Black folks do not have to be afraid they won't see their teenage daughters or sons again after they leave the house. The definition of a hate group is this, and I'm almost done. A hate group is a social group that advocates and practices hatred, hostility, or violence towards members of a race, ethnicity, nation, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, or any other designated sector of society. Notice how just about all of the above are circumstances of birth. People are not born police, so they should not be lumped in with the above groups. The police is a profession. If my and our desire to see the Binghamton Police Department be held accountable and be more transparent, to be demilitarized, and to have resources diverted towards tackling the devastating effects of poverty, addiction, and houselessness makes me and us anti-police haters, then why are we even here? Isn't the whole point to look at how policing in Binghamton negatively impacts Black folks and listen to the community when it tells you these are the problems and here are some ideas on how you can fix them? Wouldn't it be preferable and safer for police officers themselves to explore nonviolent means of de-escalation? If you've decided that we are anti-police hate groups when we offer our opinion, then what can this committee possibly hope to achieve? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tina, for your comment and for making time to address the committee tonight. Next up on our list, we have, well, you know what, let's circle back. I see Richard Genasio from the Southside Neighborhood Assembly has joined us. Richard, if you'd like a couple minutes to speak, the floor is yours. We can't hear you, Richard. I'm not sure if there's a mic issue or. If you want, we can circle back to you in a couple speakers. I think we might have just lost him. Okay, so next up on the list after Richard, and we will circle back to him, is Carol Ann Menino, Westside. Carol, did you want an opportunity to speak tonight? Okay, Carolyn is having tech issues, it looks like. Okay. How about Alan Jones? Mr. Jones, are you with us tonight? Okay.
I'm here.
Hi, Alan. Looks like third time is a charm, so we can hear you. If you want to
All
just
this is all this technical stuff. I'm an old person, and this technical stuff is like, whoa.
That's okay. If you want to just tell us which neighborhood your group.
My name is Alan Jones. I'm with the First Ward Neighborhood Watch. I've had a lot of dealings with the police department over the years, calling in on drug dealers and different things. They've been to my house a few times. The other morning, I forgot to turn the alarm off, and the gentlemen were here. And every time I've talked with the police or been in contact with them, they've been very good. I'm very happy with them, what they're doing. I was a professional firefighter medic with the city of Binghamton for 29 years. I was EMS, and we were called out a lot of times with the police for somebody fights and all like this. A lot of people don't know what goes on out there when they're trying to arrest somebody, we're trying to put somebody on a stretcher to take them to the hospital, and like this. It's a hard, dangerous job. I know there's a lot of liberal people who, want to cry and all like this, but far as I can see, over the years, I've seen that the Binghamton Police have done a good job. Thank you very much. And I'm going to click out, I guess, leave. Okay.
Thank you, Alan, for your comment and for taking the time to be with us tonight. Next up on our list is Janet McHenry. Janet, are you here and did you want an opportunity to speak?
Okay, how do I get off of here?
Okay, how about Mike Woodward? You're next on our list, Mike, if you wanted an opportunity to speak.
Hey, hello. My name's Mike Woodward. I'm from the North Side Assembly. Personally, I've never had any issues with Binghamton. Anytime that we had a problem, Binghamton's always had a really, really good response time as far as getting to our house. I've never personally seen any issues other than just, you know, the normal parking tickets and like that. So I have no complaints about Binghamton at all. And that's all I really got.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Thanks for speaking and for joining us. Reverend Ron Wenzinger. Reverend, are you here?
Yes, I am. Now that I unmuted, you can hear that I'm here.
Yes, great. The floor is yours.
Oh my, I don't have a big speech, which is unusual for a person of clergy background, but I want to echo a couple of things I've already heard. I think we have a fairly effective police force in many ways, although I think as Tina mentioned at the beginning, perhaps more officers per capita than is necessary. And my hope is that as statistics show us, and I don't know Binghamton's statistics particularly, but as statistics tend to show us, too many of the calls that the police, and some of the most dangerous calls the police have to respond to, are involved with substance abuse, are involved with mental health issues. And I know some communities in the country are experimenting with some kind of shared program with other kinds of psychological services. And I think that's a huge thing. And I think that's perhaps the most important thing we should be talking about is, you know, I don't like slogans like defund the police, because that's not the issue at all. I think change the priorities perhaps for some of that funding, since we have such a relatively high ratio per capita of police to citizens. I will also, however, echo that my experiences with the Binghamton Police have been very good. So I don't have anything to complain about. I just am hoping that we can do better. The other thing, especially in those mental health related issues, the other thing I want to mention, and this is maybe an old guy talking, but in my lifetime, I have watched the police move away from being on their feet and on the street and spending a lot more time in their cars. And I think this is destructive to building relationships. I think in my work, I'm on the north side, by the way, I didn't say that, but Centenary Shenango Street Methodist Church on the north side. And I live in the city of Binghamton, but up near Ely Park Golf Course. I think we lose so much when we don't have those personal relationships between the police and the citizenry. And when police spend as much of their time as they do either, you know, at their desks, in the station, in the cars, and not as much time actually talking with people, we build up these walls and assumptions about each other. I find that in my work in the church, when we don't have contact with even our neighbors in the neighborhood, we're just less effective. So those are the 2 points that are important to me. I think we need to somehow build relationships, more interpersonal relationships with the officers, and we need to work on partnering with some kind of psychological services, because that's a big important thing I think we can do to avoid some of the tragedies we have seen nationally. So I guess I'm done for now.
Thank you, Reverend. Thanks for sharing your input and for taking the time to be with us tonight. I want to try again with Mr. Giannasio from the Southside Neighborhood Assembly. I think he reconnected. Let's see if we can hear him.
So can you hear me?
Yes, we can. The floor is yours, Richard.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm Richard Giannasio. Specifically mentioned the group because we had a limited amount of opportunity to discuss meeting, meeting, and I also post Facebook and email, but I did not. However,
Richard, we're still having some connections with you. I don't think it's just me. It sounds like your service might be breaking up a little bit. If you wanted to send us a written comment, just like everyone else to the BPD collaborative, for yourself or the Southside Neighborhood Assembly, we would be happy to take comment that way, or to try again at the public comment meeting. Okay. Next on our participant list is Michael Moustakis, Margaret Street Neighborhood Watch. Is Michael with us tonight?
Does not look like Michael is with us here at the moment.
Okay. Okay, so we also have with us tonight, as I mentioned, several members of the steering committee. We are fortunate that a number of those members have ties to our neighborhood groups. And I'd like to take this opportunity to give each of them the floor and a chance to provide some input here too. The first up in that regard is Marianne Callahan. She's a steering committee member and also a member of the First Ward Neighborhood Watch. So Marianne, the floor is yours.
Hello. I actually wrote a statement out because I felt that we had to maybe give some background to people who are new to Binghamton or haven't lived here like I have all my life. So with your permission, I shall read my statement. Rod Serling, one of Binghamton's most celebrated sons, used to say, everyone has a hometown and Binghamton's mine. Like him, I also grew up in Binghamton. The First Ward was my neighborhood, and except for 9 years spent in Afghanistan, it has been my home. And as someone who spoke at the faith community meeting on Tuesday mentioned, Binghamton was always seen as a safe place, a great place to grow up in. The ward, as my neighborhood was often called, was heavily immigrant back then. My grandparents came from Eastern Europe and found the heavily Slavic population familiar and comforting. It was made up of humble but well-kept homes that helped Binghamton maintain the title of the parlor city. Most of the neighbors knew each other on some level, and they kind of watched out for each other and for us kids as well. In fact, all of us kids knew that if you ever misbehaved, whether at school or as we played on the street, you were likely to be stopped and reprimanded by neighbors before you got home, and your parents got you. What we could never figure out was how they always seemed to know. And in that place and that time, we were told over and over that the police were your friends. Captain Kangaroo told us, our teachers told us, and even the mayor, who when I was growing up always seemed to be the Honorable John Burns, told us. And I always believed him especially because I thought that the mayor and the captain were brothers because they looked so much alike. And I'm sure that the portrait that I'm painting right now might seem a bit wistful or slightly skewed by time or even naive, but I am convinced that it was like that for so many of us. Our parents, like all parents, struggled with the same economic challenges, and they all wanted the best for their kids. And Binghamton was right next to the home of the square deal. There was an archway on Main Street leading to Johnson City that said so. But times change and places change as well. The familiar neighborhoods became less familiar. Neighbors didn't know each other as well, and the old feeling of safety was not as predominant. As the economy changed, many moved away, being replaced by new faces, many of them different, and many of them part of a new wave of immigrants. In fact, I had the privilege to work in refugee resettlement in the late 90s, as Binghamton was a federally designated settlement site because of the strong immigrant roots and its opportunities for all. And I've said all of this to say that while we may have to accept the changes that have affected our city these days, we should never accept the distancing of the people in our neighborhoods from the police who are there to protect and serve. We have heard tonight many people talk about what's right and what's wrong, and they're all right. They're all correct in what they're saying as far as it is in their view. But nothing's going to change until we start to look together for the kinds of things that we need to do. So as we move forward, one very important thing in this whole exercise is that we create opportunities for our police and our people to know each other and to understand each other. So community policing, civilian review boards, neighborhoods, these are all so very important here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Marianne, for your comments and for being here with us and your work on the steering committee. Next up is Deborah Hogan, Center City resident and also a steering committee member. Deborah, are you here with us tonight?
Yes, I am, Megan. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you. I don't necessarily have a prepared statement, but I always speak from the heart and with passion for my beloved Center City. At age 25, after earning funds from part-time jobs and a farm stand, I was the proud owner of a 3-family home on Hawley Street in downtown Binghamton. Having been injured, banking institutions didn't want to look at a young person, even though she had her down payment. Mrs. Gallagher, who had a proud history, actually SEP that turns old schools into senior and disabled housing, started in my building. So there's a proud entrepreneurial transition. I purchased that home on October 27, 1993. My idea of peace and calm changed dramatically. I believe it was in December of 1995 when the police department, sheriff department did a raid on the home next door to me. What had been going on was a 24/7 drug and prostitution ring. It was the time when you had people dealing out of buildings and customers pulling up in their vehicles. I remember 146 Hawley Street that is now torn down. I utilized that scenario of a business because it was a business. You had people who were the dealers that had security systems, whether it be human or the Rottweilers. You had customers of all socioeconomic backgrounds be the customers. You had office managers, and it was just something that a girl from the suburbs, still in Broome County, who had only been exposed to cigarette smoke in the girls' bathroom, was a wide opening, at times terrifying experience. I was the proud owner of a consulting that I had opened in 1994, and having an annual celebration, it was sad that I had to go across the street and ask for basically no business to be conducted so that I could have my ceremony and welcome people to my home. Neighbors in my block, very proud. We decided to contact the police department. It was then Sergeant Munson and Jim Lewis that came to my office to meet with me and a small group of neighbors to understand what was neighborhood watch. We had to gather a grouping. And I remember our very first meeting hosted at St. Mary's Church, Fayette and Court Street, and Mayor Bucci was our guest speaker. And of course, we all had issues of trafficking whether it be on Pine, Holly, Susquehanna, Fayette, the true heart of Center City. And I remember Miss Angie Slider, one of her complaints was the fireworks at NYSEG Stadium. And we didn't think that that was a complaint because it wasn't community based for the police department. But what it was is everyone's concerns that grew into what was known as Neighbors Against Crime. And we had meetings monthly with various guest speakers from the police department, the district attorney's office, to help us, in essence, be the eyes and ears for the police department, whether we were taking down license plate numbers or descriptions. And it was very hard for me that at that time, who were doing the sales, in essence, was young Black men age 18 to approximately 24. And I didn't felt very uncomfortable with those descriptions. And when I was suggested to go to the Citizen Police Academy, which I encourage, that needs to come back, it was approximately a 6 to 8 week, once a week. And we learned about each and every department, whether it was traffic department, it was the training department, it was a face to the badge, and we understood how the police could help us, but not only the police, the various departments within City Hall, the mayor's office, code enforcement. We then grew into having various activities in the community to build those relationships, to get to know neighbors, whether it was the Christmas party at St. Mary's when we had the Greenman Senior Center, we had our Halloween party and parade. It was getting families together and getting to know the young people. We then morphed into the National Night Out celebration very proudly with Reverend Osby, and we had hot dog parties. Somewhat upwards of 400 people attended that. The crime prevention booklets were given out. The police came out from City Hall and they were in our park. The most exciting was the canine demonstration. The young everyone from to senior citizens from the Binghamton Housing Authority came down, and it was just a wonderful celebration. But we got to know each other, we got to know the city officials, and when we had complaints, they would know we had the concerns. It was very much a bonding. I also wanted to just note that one of my neighbors, when tallied the cost of repeated calls at one property that was an issue in Center City, she figured it was $21,000 a year for services, whether it was police, fire, and code. So working with those departments was crucial. Was able to share our experiences and spoke to many neighborhood watch groups in the First Ward, the West Side, and East Side. I too was concerned about the recent acquisition of the military vehicle and was able to reach out to the department, and training officer Charpinski actually was able to schedule an appointment for me to see it, but due to some medical, I wasn't able to do that. So again, if there was a concern, we were able to discuss it. One of the things that had been pursued is the Weed and Seed Initiative. And I'm sorry I didn't talk about this earlier. That was an endeavor with the Department of Justice. And in essence, what we're doing now, that foundation was laid in our city. The weeding was the policing and the community outreach through, and then the community side was the seeding, where you worked with agencies. And I just want to give one example. We had young people that needed to have a job. So we worked to fund lifeguard training at the WCA. And then when Columbus Park had the pool, those young people were hired by the city as lifeguards so they could have pocket money, but also start their resume, whether it be for jobs or college applications. And I would really like to delve in. And the final example that I'd like to give that came from the Department of Justice is when we first had our meeting, we took
And
that.
and Deborah, I don't mean to interrupt you, but if we could just do another minute and then we'll have to move on to the next
Oh,
person.
absolutely. I do apologize for being over time. I just get so excited
No, not at all.
to talk about those relationships. And we had a meeting at St. Mary's Recreation Center where we gathered youth from the Urban League, Boys and Girls Club, and I think there was a programs at the YW and YM, and police officers that were off-duty jeans and t-shirts had a round table. They got to talk about how and why they were a police officer. The young people got to ask questions. So that was a partnership that was founded. And the last thing, the diversity. I was a proctor for the civil service exams. If we do not have members of the minority community taking those civil service exams, we cannot have them be police officers. The Weed and Seed program partnered officers with people, young people wanting to take the exams. Let's dust off that plan of several years ago. Phenomenal program, brought almost $1 million into this community. Thank you for the time. And I just am very passionate about Center City and the relationships we've established with the Binghamton PD.
Thanks so much, Deborah. Thank you for sharing and for your time too on the steering committee. We appreciate it. Also on the steering committee and with us tonight is Dave Hawley. He is a member of the Southside Neighborhood Assembly and also a longtime Binghamton School Board member. So Dave, if you would like a few minutes to comment, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Megan. Just a couple of quick things I would like to mention. Reverend Wensinger mentioned, and a few others in our last meeting talked about, I think, which is one of the most important issues, is the issue of mental health and substance abuse and the need for the police department to have more support in those areas. Actually, for the whole community to have support in those areas. We really need work on that. And the other thing, I'm a longtime resident of Binghamton, and over the years, I've come to know a lot of Binghamton patrolmen, a lot of policemen, as neighbors and friends. And as Tina Konopoulos mentioned, that I think it is important that the police officers live in the community and have community ties in the neighborhoods. I think that's an important issue. The other big issue I've heard come up is again, the diversity in hiring and the fact that we need to make our police force look more like the community. One of the big problems is right now, the whole issue that we're looking at and trying to reimagine the police force is that right now, for many of our minorities, the law enforcement does not look like a reasonable career choice. The reason they're not taking the civil service test is because many of them are not interested in becoming policemen, becoming part of the police force because of a lot of the issues that are going on right now. So the other thing we need to look at really, and as you mentioned, I am part of the school community as well, and we're facing the same thing with teachers. When I was young, teaching and law enforcement were both well-respected careers and things that people aspired to. We have to try to make them be more attractive again, so that people will want to go into these professions. That's another one of the big issues that we have to look at. And thank you for your time.
Steve, thanks for being with us and for your work on the steering committee. Next up, we have Councilman Joe Burns. Councilman Burns represents the 5th District, also on the South Side. Councilman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, everybody, for being here. My experience with the Binghamton Police Department personally has always been good. And I grew up with friends whose parents were police officers, and some of them became police officers, and now I know some of their children who are police officers. So I have a lot of respect for the people that go into law enforcement and the Binghamton Police Department. But as everybody was talking, and especially the other night when we had the speakers, the reverends speaking, I thought of a story that happened, and you want me to speak about the South Side. This story happened on the South Side. And I have a friend named Perry Kendrick. Perry he's a black man, and he grew up he grew up in this community. He still holds the record, the STAC record for high school receptions in one game. It was he caught like 22 catches in one game. I remember the game. And he is a master carpenter. He has his own business, Kendrick Construction. He and his son and his brother put together this whole inside of my house that you're looking at. They worked on a lot of the Burns family's houses, my brothers and my nephews. And this one day, my son owns a two-family over on Brook Avenue, and there was he had a flood over there due to one of the tenants leaving water on. But so we had to put a new floor in, and we had a plumber go in, and we had an inspector go in to make sure that it was all taken care of. And I was in charge because my son was living up in Ithaca, and I was supposed to leave the key in the mailbox for everybody, but I didn't do it. So when the plumber came one day, I said, look, just go in the window. There's a window right on the front porch. It's open. That's the way I've been going in. Just go on in. He said, no problem. Same with the inspector, no problem. Well, Perry showed up with his son and his brother, and he called me and he said, Joe, the key's not here. And I said, oh, Perry, just climb in the window. It's open. And now there was silence for about 5 seconds. And then Perry says, Joe, you don't want me climbing in that window. I said, okay, I'll bring the key over. So I brought the key over. And when I got there, he said, Joe, had I climbed in that window, one of the neighbors was going to call the cops and say that there was 3 black men burglarizing the house. He said, when the cop shows up with their lights flaring, I'm going to have to be nicer. I'm going to have to be more polite than you have ever been in your life. And I better have my story down absolutely perfectly. And if my son reaches for his hammer, I hope the cop doesn't think he's reaching for a weapon, because it could get really bad. And he said, and if the cop isn't nice to me, then my son is not going to like that at all. And now we're going to have a real problem on our hands. And I said, Perry, you thought of all that in 5 seconds? And he said, Joe, I've had to live my whole life thinking like that. Now, this is a man who brought his family up just off Riverside Drive. They went to Binghamton High School. He's a wonderful grandfather, and he's 60 some years old, and he has been having to live that way and think that way his whole life. So I think that we have an opportunity here. We've been given a responsibility on this committee to start a process that will, so his grandchildren don't have to grow up with that fear. So that's what I want to do. So, and that's all I have. Thanks very much.
Councilman Burns, thank you for your comments tonight, for your work with us on the steering committee. We also have with us Councilman Tom Scanlon. Councilman Scanlon is with us via phone, so I'm going to try now. Councilman Scanlon, are you able to talk to us here? It's saying you just have to unmute. Okay, looks like we might not be able to do that. I apologize, and I thank you for your patience for the tech issues that we were having tonight with both on our end and with some of the participants. I just want to remind you that anyone who wants a chance to comment can email that BPD collaborative email, whether you had signed up tonight and weren't able to or otherwise. And I do want to thank everyone who signed up to participate tonight. All public input meetings are recorded and will be available online on the City of Binghamton's website under the 2021 Binghamton Police Reform and Collaborative page. The next public outreach meeting is for community advocacy groups and will take place Tuesday, February 9th at 6:30 p.m. Representatives from community advocacy groups can email bpdcollaborative@cityofbinghamton.com to sign up and participate in that meeting. And like I said, any resident who has thoughts, questions, or input in general can email that same address at any point to submit written comment. Lastly, there will be an open public comment meeting on February 18th at 6:30 p.m. where any member of the public can comment. So thank you again, all of you, for your time tonight, for being here with us, and we will talk to you soon.